Okay, everybody, welcome to the Beautifully Twisted podcast. This evening, we're going to be talking about men and grief, and not just grief within death, but grief, period. Losing a job, losing your identity, um, kind of the universal umbrella of it all. Um, I've loved men, I've worked beside men, I've listened to men, lost men, watched often how they grieve from the doorway. They don't fully engage. They'll stand back and they'll listen and calculate and do their own inner talking, but they don't generally actively engage just because they process differently. And we're women who talk to process. We will talk about the same things over and over and over again. Make it make sense. It's what we do. Um, so we're used to turning it over, naming it, but men process grief differently. And we don't want to sit here as women and explain men's grief without inviting a man who works directly in men's mental health into the conversation. So I would like to welcome Marc Azoulay um, from Men's Therapy Online to our podcast this evening. Thank you very much, Marc, for joining us.
Yeah,
Yay.
We appreciate it very, very much.
happy to come on the show and talk about it. But I think it's a really important topic.
I,
And I,
I
and I think
agree.
to your point, I think a lot of men don't know how to process grief. So yes,
Facts.
we do it differently, but I think a lot of us are really out of our depth. So
We're winging it.
yeah, or just overwhelmed by it. So
Yeah.
I hope that this conversation can give some men some options and
Facts. Me
inspire
too.
them to show up a little bit differently in these spaces. You know.
Facts. Because, I mean, nobody, even for women, no one teaches you how to process
Yeah.
grief. You're kind of just left sitting in it to wing it and figure it out. We're just more vocal and expressive about it because that's what we were taught to do.
Mm.
Men were taught the polar opposite of that. Be strong, don't express yourself, keep it in, men don't cry, blah, 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 so on and so forth. All those very stoic ideals that, why, yes, on one hand may apply, by the other scope of that,
Mhm.
doesn't help their mental health much.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think it's this like false version of strength. We have this idea, and maybe it's from like, I don't know. I always think of like Irish Catholic for some reason, right? But this idea of like
Facts.
this strong stoic man that like doesn't cry and like everybody leans on him. And by everyone, I think we mean like women and children, right? That's kind of what
Facts.
the
Yes.
assumption is there. And like you need to just be this like rock for your family.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that is dumb because what I hear
Mhm.
from women time and time again, and from from my experience and seeing the older men in my generation go through grief, is that it's not strong. Actually, it feels very distant. It feels lonely. It feels like you don't care. It feels like cold. Often,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel
Like you're
strong. No one's
shutting
like, "Oh wow,
everyone out.
you really did it." Yeah, exactly. It feels like you're pushing everyone away. And I think the man, I use literally the funeral example when I work with my clients of like, okay, to use your emotions, right? To be able to use your emotions is like, it's not sitting silently in the back, of a funeral and like being a rock. It's getting up and giving a eulogy that moves the crowd to tears, that you can
Right.
be in your emotion, that you can communicate it, that you can harness that grief and that pain and really read the room and just like bring people together through emotional expression.
Right.
Mhm.
But you'll see a lot of
Right.
these guys, like, even though they're strong, you give them the mic and they freeze, right? Because we don't even know what to say. We don't even know how to like show up. So we're just like kind of like clenching, everything that we have,
Yes.
to
Yes.
not lose it. But of course, losing it is what would connect us with the other people in our lives, actually.
Well, and that gets into too, I think, back into that social conditioning and almost because of the social conditioning taught to be almost performative instead of process.
Yes. Yes.
I think is where a lot of that lies, just personally from observation and life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it's performative and a lot of it's like trying not to be perceived as weak.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh my
Mhm.
God, if you're a man and say your parent dies, like you should be sad about that.
Yeah.
You only got two of them, right?
Right.
So it's like
Nobody's
you
going to
should
point at
be
you like,
sad.
oh my God, he cried. It'll be like, oh my God, he felt it. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no one's gonna be like, oh, he cried when his mom died. Like, what a pussy. It's like, come on, man. Like your mom died. You can be sad about it.
Thank
You
you.
know?
It's
Exactly.
okay. It's okay. Exactly. And something else that in that lane, you know, uh, just because he isn't crying where you can see him doesn't mean that he isn't shattered.
Mhm.
Exactly.
He can be horribly, horribly broken and just deadpan on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I think, more common, and again, what I tell my guys is like, if you don't express yourself, that's how you get more broken on the inside, is because all that energy has nowhere to go. So it just kind of like ricochets in your brain until it
Yeah.
comes out, often self-destructively, often, it's drinking too
Yeah.
much, or exploding, at your spouse or your child, or distancing yourself and really falling behind at work, or whatever it is, right? But like it will come out sideways because you're still feeling it. It's just you need to have like a channel for it, a healthy channel and a healthy form of expression.
Facts, because just speaking from my own experiences, and I shared some of this with you, my own life and bottling things up and pushing them down did
Mhm,
come out sideways, very,
Yeah.
very sideways. And
Mhm.
even now on my healing journey, it still comes sideways sometimes because the brain can't now rectify, is this fight or flight? What am I doing here? What's going on? Is this just somebody with a face? Are we really in danger?
mhm.
And I don't wish that upon anybody. You know, it's okay to have your feels. Everybody may not agree with
Yeah.
them. Everybody may not like them. They don't have to. They're your feels. Have them. Feel them. Sit with them. Work through them. It's okay. You're human.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh,
I could talk more about why men don't express it, if that would be helpful.
please do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can go on it. So yeah, okay. So for a lot of men, right, we have learned often through experiences, and mainly experiences with women, that our emotions are dangerous, right? Because as men, we are aggressive. So when it comes out sideways, especially when we're younger, we do shitty shit, right? Again, especially to women, right? We like yell, God forbid, we maybe hit somebody, right? We, storm off, we storm out of a lunch, or we storm out, we drink too much and we say something really stupid, or we break something, we punch a hole in the wall, right? It's like, because like you're saying, right, we don't have that education and that socialization around how to express it healthily. It often comes out sideways. So a
Mhm.
man in his like young adulthood, if he becomes a man in a way, part of that is like closing all of that down, because
Mhm.
we know that our emotions can hurt people, and they can hurt the people often closest to us. So it comes from kind of like a logical place, and it comes ultimately from compassion, but it's a stupid strategy, because what we're saying is like, it's the emotions are going to win regardless of what you
Right.
do. But when I
Mhm.
talk to so many of my guys, it's not that they're trying to like not feel anything. I use a metaphor of like, the Incredible Hulk. Whereas if you watch the Avengers movies, right, when the Hulk
Yes.
like freaks out, what they do, because they can't calm him down, is they like pick him up with a helicopter, they drop him in the desert so he can go and like punch cactuses or whatever, right, and break rocks until he calms down. And a lot of men, we feel like we're the Incredible Hulk when we get upset, when we get angry, when we get
He
sad,
resonated very much with my husband. So, yes,
right?
I get that analogy
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yes,
Mhm.
and that does happen, right? Like again, especially if we're not trained in it, our emotions are violent and dangerous, and they can really freak out all the people around us, right? And often result in people distancing from us. Like, whoa, okay, that guy was too much, or that guy lost his shit, and he like did something crazy, and now you're on the rocks with your spouse, you're losing your friends, right? You got fired because you blew up at work, whatever it is, right? We have like negative consequences. So over
Mhm.
time, we learn to just like bottle it up, bottle it up, bottle it up, and express it alone, you know?
Right.
And because a lot of there's not really good spaces for men to express stuff alone. Here's a plug for men's therapy online. Check us out. You can express your
Right?
emotions. But most dudes like withdrawal, and especially a lot of guys, especially in America, just start drinking. Right? You
Yeah.
like go into the
Facts.
man cave, you crack open a couple beers, and you just start drinking alone in like your dark cave. And that, I mean, it's better than nothing, I guess. It's better than like killing yourself or blowing up, but it's not a healthy way to really start to feel your feelings.
Right.
And it just creates more of that isolation and more of that feeling that your emotions are Incredible Hulk, right? That they're a bad thing that need to be controlled and contained, rather than I think the message that women get, which is awesome, is that emotions are connective tissue, right? Emotions are how you connect with other people and how you are authentic and how you're real and how you actually build trust and you build connection and you get to know people. Like I think that's more what emotions are, but I think
Right.
most
Facts.
men see emotions as like demons or as obstacles or as problems that they have to get rid of rather than something that can actually bond them with other people in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I always felt like, even with my husband, I always felt like the longer we were married, the better that part got, insofar as him sharing his
Yeah.
feelings, his emotions, because there's a trust there, there's a bond there. You learn kind of that ebb and flow. But the flip side of that coin is there were also other things that he was very closed off about because of my issues.
Mhm.
And would say, I don't want to talk about that because I know what'll happen. You'll get triggered and then we're gonna have a problem. And
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I can flop around like a fish out of water while you're still talking. I can still hear you. I'm just not gonna look pretty while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really common experience I think a lot of men have is that when we do express it, and again, we express emotions intensely. So no, we're not victims here, but oftentimes they're not held and they're not received. And because a man is so like sensitive, right? Because it's new for us. Like we
Yeah.
really expect
It's
how
awkward.
yeah, it's awkward and it's scary, and we kind of want the other person, right? Say it's you in the situation, right, or the other or our spouse to like be that rock, to be what we think we should be, you know? Whereas
Yeah.
again, when you see women expressing emotions with women, you all are both emotional together, right? And you're
Right.
Mm-hmm.
feeling the same thing, and you're in the flow, and you're bonding, right? You're vibing on that. Whereas I
Yes.
think most men like we want to connect in a more masculine quote way where it's like the other person is just like neutral and the other person like has their shit together so that we have permission to lose our shit. And I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that I think that's hard for women to do, right? Because
Yeah.
y'all are trained in a different language, right? You're trained to really empathize and really connect and really like get in there, get into the weeds and ask all the questions and put yourself in their shoes and all of a sudden you start feeling stuff, right? And like it's just two different languages. And I think it's like
Mhm.
kind of a cosmic joke that our languages are not compatible in many ways, you know?
In
And that's
some ways,
funny
yeah.
because I've always felt like we speak the same language. It's just different dialects.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I
We
wanted to
can
touch
say the
base
very
too on
same thing.
like
It's just
how,
in different ways. Go ahead, Mom.
right. I was gonna say I wanted to touch base on too, like how hard it is for men that don't have good coping skills to be able to communicate,
Mhm.
some of their grief or angst or things that are going on or emotions, especially ones that like, for instance, don't drink, that are sober. So those
Mhm.
men have a lot harder times, with almost zero coping skills to actually be okay with their emotions. So I thought that was kind of crazy, like listening to what you guys are saying. And I was like thinking of that.
Yeah.
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 Facts.
Well, and there's so much like, I mean, I call it homophobia. It could also be like misogyny, but I think a lot of men don't pick up those coping skills because they're afraid of
Mm.
it being like gay or weak or feminine, which again
Stereotype.
is a huge problem, right?
Hmm.
But things like, I mean, I can't tell you the number of guys I talk to where I'm like, hey, like journal, right? And it's like, no, that's like for girls. Like I'm not gonna have a diary. I'm like, all right, or like do meditation or do yoga or like I don't know,
Hmm.
paint a picture about your feelings or write a
Go
poem or
walk. Go
listen to
fish.
music.
Go
It's
something.
literally anything, right? And like the only thing that's acceptable is like go to the gym and fucking work out hard. And like, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, the gym is great, but all these like emotionally expressive, artistic, creative things that I think girls are encouraged to do, rightfully so. Like that's how you process your emotions, right? You got to express them through art, really. I mean, ultimately it's some version of art. And I think there's so many men that are really, really against that because they feel like it threatens their masculinity. It threatens like what it means to be a man in their mind.
And again, we get back to that social norm that they're taught you
Yeah.
have to be this way. It has to look like this. You have to walk this path. You really don't. You really
Mm-mm.
don't. You
And you're
really
not going
don't.
to
It's
give up your manness if you do a painting or journal or come talk to your
ex-
woman or whatever. That's why I
No.
have
exact.
to take Michael in the woods. I have to
Yeah.
go like, let's go hiking, Bubba, because this sucks right now. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
Yeah.
And like I mean, it's all fake. I mean, I think it's like this like 1950s American thing, because if you look throughout history, right, like how many famous painters, you could probably name more famous male painters than female painters, frankly,
Mhm.
right? Or like poets, or all these different artists, like men and women are both doing them through all of history, right? It's not
Yeah.
like it's like
Mm-hmm.
specifically a male versus female thing.
Mhm.
But your point about hiking, I mean, that is, I find that does work. So, as we transition, if we talk about like things that do work, is like doing something that is, masculine coded, right? Like hiking. From our organization, we'll do camping trips. We'll like throw axes. We'll light fires. We'll like do shit that's like, okay, definitely you're a man, right?
You're like,
Um,
"Rah."
yeah, but once you do that, you will find that like guys start to open up after that, and so
Because it's
many
the
guys.
camaraderie.
Yes, yes. It's the idea of like overcoming a challenge together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a ton of research, which that's really interesting, where they show that women connect face to face, like eye contact, but men connect side by side, like parallel, not looking at each other, you know? And you can see so many guys will talk about how like they've had the best conversations with their spouse or with their child, like in the car, during a car ride.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not looking at each other. You're looking like
No,
you're both looking ahead, right? Um,
exactly.
so if you want to connect with your man, it's like doing something that again is masculine, that he can prove to you that he's a man, right? Go hiking, go camping, go to the gym, and then don't be surprised on the car ride back, he might start opening up, right?
Mhm.
Once
Right.
once he feels connected to you, once he feels safe with you, once he feels like you two have overcome something, you've been a good team. A lot of guys say they want to feel like their partner is their team member, right? That
Mhm.
you've like done something together that's hard and you survived, and then now that safety is built for that emotion. Um, which again is a different language, or to your point, maybe a different dialect of the human language of like that's how men build safety. Whereas I think for women, it's more emotional intimacy, right? It's more like getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
settling in, knowing that there's not going to be judgment, knowing that there's not going to be that hierarchy or the mean girl bullshit, right? Like women, you're looking for that. Whereas men, it's like, okay, can we accomplish things together? That's kind of our big
Right.
question,
And that really was going to be the next question is, how do we create a doorway for them to be able to move through it without us forcing them through it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you can
yeah,
lead a horse to water. You might have to drown him once you get there, but I mean, you can get him there.
To
So,
me, there's a different language that they speak. Like you said, there's a different language, and I'm going to give you an example because I have male clients as well, and the biggest um way, or one of the things that you need to pay attention to, is when a man says, "I'm tired,"
mhm,
because that is not just physical.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you can actually, that's a door to open and say, actually ask them, well, what are you tired of? Why are you tired? What are you tired of? Because it's not just physical. So don't just tell me that you're tired because you've been working all day. Tell me, what are you tired of? And that
yeah, and
kind of opens the door and say, well, I'm tired of your ass. That's what I'm tired. I'm tired of coming home and there's nothing to eat. I'm tired of, but
and
they really mean something else
Mhm.
when
yeah,
they say one thing. You get to open the door and put cushion down for them
Yeah.
to actually say
but
something.
then when
And
the
I think
response is, I'm fine, don't worry about it, I'm good. Okay, clearly you're not.
Mhm.
right.
So now what?
Well, yeah. Well, now what is just to wait 5 more minutes and then say, well, if you're fine, guess what? I'm not, because I can feel that you're not. So
Mhm.
my feelings are always valid and they're always right. So please, why don't you tell me what we can work on? I
Right.
actually asked my husband the other day, driving back from Virginia, like you said, you go one way and then you come back and it's something different, right? Or a door has opened, and I said, what can I do to make your life happier and easier?
hmm hmm
And the first thing he said was, well, you make me happy. But I didn't. But that was the easy way out. I was like, no, bro, no,
Mhm.
no.
That's
And so
cute,
it
but
opened
no.
right. I do make you happy, but what can I do to assist on making you even happier? and
Mhm.
your life a little bit easier. You can tell me at 3 o'clock you want me to feed the quail and the chickens. And then I
Right.
would feel like, okay, well, if that's going to work, then I'll try that. But I really wanted you to dig a little bit deeper and tell me. And he
Right.
did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And I
Coach
didn't go,
Jeff.
yeah, I
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
do that. I was like, oh, shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let me process that now and then I'll get back to you. But yeah, men
Right.
have a
Right.
different language. What we may say, I could tell my girl, I'm tired. And the way I phrase it, the way it slips off my tongue, they'll know, oh, she's tired from work, or she's tired
Yeah.
of the day,
Yeah.
or somebody done pissed
Mhm.
her off. They can
Mhm.
read each other. We are not reading the men when they say, I'm tired.
Mhm.
Same words, different meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they I don't think men, and forgive me if I'm wrong, have been taught from the beginning of their childhood, basically balancing what you feel is masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Balancing that, because we do need balance. So not showing your emotions does not make you a man. They're not
It
taught
makes you
that,
closed
because
off.
right now daddy's at work when you're in school. He's at work when you're not in school and you get out of school, but mommy's at work too. So now
Mm-hmm.
there's that, and the kid is sitting there like, I'm gonna play video games, and they grow up and not know how to maneuver their emotions. They're
Mhm.
taught, you better take the trash out on Thursdays before you leave the house to go to school. You need to do this, you need to do that, and that's it. There's no, hey, how are you feeling? Let's talk about that. Oh, you
Mhm.
don't want to take the trash out. Tell me why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They have
They're
the
not taught
structure, but they don't know how
to
to
Yeah.
maneuver the
speak.
load-bearing beams.
They don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't. It's
It's all
just like
action oriented.
hormones.
Yeah, it's all action oriented.
Hmm.
It's all performance oriented. I think we have a lot of really good points, Nature. And I will say, if your listeners are interested, there's a book called The Queen's Code that's written by Alison Armstrong, she's a psychologist, and she writes basically for women as a woman about male psychology, and it's a great like a translation piece. It's like a
Hmm.
Rosetta
Nice.
Stone, to help understand male psyche. So a lot of suggestions are
Right.
going to come from that book.
Yeah.
But your point of like the tonal language, because and then
Hmm.
the research shows this, right? Is that women are very tonal, right? You're like you said, you can say fine in 10 different tones, and for whatever reason, you can pick up like the subtext of that tone of voice, you know?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And men, I will say, like we do not have that. Like
Mhm.
backed by research, we literally do not perceive it. We don't know if it's nature, we don't know if it's nurture, right? It's hard to tell, but we do know
Hmm.
is that we do not see it. So like as a woman, sometimes you think that your man can pick up on your tone of voice, or he can see like, oh, that person looked at me that way, right? That's a common one. And then the guy's like, what do you mean? Like I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
catch that, you know?
Right.
Because as women,
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
you're trained
hmm.
and you're much more detail oriented, so you can see all those like
Hmm.
little micro expressions and the way someone's eye changes or what tone of voice they have. Men don't really get that. But what we do, kind of to your point, is like if you ask a guy a question, it has to be pretty basic. Like you said, what are you tired of? That's a great question. And then the key point is like give him a lot of space. You know,
Hmm.
like be
Hmm.
quiet, right? Like just listen, receive, like I was saying before, just kind of try to be as strong as you are, right? And kind of keep him to it. And that silence, one, it makes him feel like, okay, he can start to open up, he can take his time. A lot of men, especially if they're traditionally masculine, when we get to emotions, we talk really slow and we have to think a lot. Like it's hard. It's like hard, right? Whereas
Yeah.
again, women, you all are rapid fire when you're doing it, and like we're
Yeah.
not. So like you have to kind of resist the impulse to jump in and like
Yeah.
ask more questions or relate to something in your own life or whatever. Like just like
Hmm.
you can't like give us space because
You
it's
gotta
you.
ask questions. You have
Yeah,
to ask more questions.
yeah, and a
That's
lot of
what works
follow up
for Jeff.
questions.
Is
Yeah.
that you got to keep asking the one saying will, or one answer will lead me to another question, and I have to pull it. And say I don't like to pull, but it works for
But
certain
sometimes
men.
you have to
So
follow the thread to get to the knot.
you have to, yes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know when he's grieving, he gets a look on his face, and I can tell that energy, that look.
Mhm.
And then I know if I should ask or if I should just give him that space for now and then say later, hey, what were you thinking earlier? Because I saw that, or something like that. Because men are not taught how to grieve.
No.
Yeah.
They are not.
No.
They are not. Not
Yeah.
outwardly. On the
Yeah.
outside, they grieve on the inside. And like you said, Mark, it creates a monster.
Yeah.
It can create a monster. Yeah.
Well, and
So-
another good way is like staying like action oriented, which I think you also brought up, right? Like a good question that I use that I coach, the women I work with on is like, ask a guy, hey, what are the 3 biggest problems in your life right now? You know? And like, and to your point, nature, like, and can I help you with any of them? And the answer might be no, and if it's no, don't take it personally. But like the idea of like, what are some of the issues that you're working on right now? What are what's the biggest source of bullshit in your life? Again, kind of speaking that masculine language. And like, even though it's action oriented, you'll get emotions, right? You'll get what you're looking for. You'll get how he feels about stuff because he's starting to identify problems, right? And then identifying a solution. And it's not about him, right? It's about like the bullshit in his life, but between you and me, it's really about him, right? But
Right.
having those kind of like entry points, I think are really important. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is like not feeling like you have to take care of him, because I think once a man feels like he's burdening you with your emotions, because as
Yeah.
men, again, especially these very
Men,
masculine,
they don't like to do that.
they're protectors. I mean, we're protectors,
Mhm.
right? So like we want to protect the people and our spouses and our children. So like the minute that we see that our emotions are hurting, that we perceive as hurting somebody else, we're gonna just shut it down,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Like we don't want it to
Yep.
be your problem, right? Like we want to
That's
take
what I
on
went
your
through
problems and solve
for
your
years
problems
with
for you.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Facts.
exactly.
Well, I was
Like
also
you don't
gonna
want
say,
to,
like,
yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was also gonna say that, whenever you play 20 questions, sometimes I know that questioning sometimes can open that door, but playing 20 questions can almost hurt more than it can help
Mhm.
sometimes. So I know that like slight questioning can definitely help, be like, hey, throw this out there like a little seed, but not to just like berate or just
Not a
investigate, you know what I
full-on
mean?
FBI investigation with notes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then it
Well,
starts to
yeah,
like
we
you kind of
talking
said,
about. I'm sorry.
it starts to delve into like that masculinity, something's wrong with me, something's broken, she's
Yes.
asking too many
Yes.
questions, blah blah blah. So I do know there's a fine line of like, okay, let me ask and open this door, and I don't want to berate him, you know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah. You don't have
Yeah.
to dig.
Well,
Well,
I'm
and I
sorry.
think there's a vague question which I use a lot is like just saying like, oh, that's interesting. I want to hear more about that. Right. Which is like vague. It's basically just saying like, go on. And you're saying you're not like pointing at something. Like you said, you're not saying like, oh, you're broken, you're fucked up, you got to fix X, Y, and Z. I'm worried about you. Right. Again, as men, we don't want anyone to be worried about us. But it's being like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, say more. Right. Like act engaged, act curious, and like let the guy take the bait, right? And to your point, Molly, like go like as far as he's able to go, right? And then when he's done, be like, oh, thank you. I really didn't know that about you. I feel like I'm closer to you. That was great. Like looking forward to next time we get to talk, and leave it at that, right? Just like give it like a little cookie, a little treat, like make
Little
sure it's a
shoulder.
good experience, and then
Good
move on.
job.
Yeah, yeah,
So as far as grief is concerned, though, when a man is grieving and they don't know what to do with it,
yeah.
I can actually give an example of that because my husband lost his nephew not too long ago. So and I didn't know him. I saw him before we walked past each other and hey, how you doing? But so I asked him. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. How do you feel about that?" And he's like, I'm okay. And I'm like, so, were y'all close? Because I don't, I'm opening the door. And he's like, no, but I'm worried about my sister.
Yeah.
That's how it leads into the grief thing. When this man has lost somebody, reach for him as lightly as you can to help him talk about what it is that is he's worried about at this moment about that grief. So it wasn't so much, I mean, he was sorry that the nephew transitioned, but he was more worried about his sister. Why? Because she had just lost her daughter, she had just lost her husband, and now he's really concerned about that part, because she's still here and she wound up getting sick actually. not too long ago. But
Mm,
the grief
yeah.
part with a man is very tiptoeish, not to want to make them shut down and clamp. She's gonna think I'm a punk. If I say, "Man, this shit fucking
Yeah.
hurts," if I
Yeah.
just so, but to, like you said, make him comfortable, give him a pillow, to fall on if he falls on, but
Soft
just
landing.
hold the pillow. Don't like throw it down and say, "Hey, hit the pillow." Kind of
Yeah.
like hold the pillow for a little while, and just easily give it to him, gradually give it to him,
Yeah.
because they're not
Soft
taught how
landing.
to grieve.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
to go with what's there, right? Like you said, instead of being like, forget about your sister, I want to hear about you. It's like, no, he just gave you
Right.
something. So saying
He
like,
just
hey,
gave
what are
you
you worried
something.
about with your sister? And then back to that team
Mm-hmm.
mentality of like, okay, I hear that you're worried about your sister. What can we as a team do to support your sister? Should we be
Mhm.
sending
Right.
her a card? Should we send her some meals? Should we go over to her house? Like it's very action oriented because I think a guy, especially when he's grieving, like we don't like being out of control, and grief is one of those things where you're not in control. You've
Mhm.
lost,
Mm-hmm.
a person is the most common one, but you can also feel grief from like losing a job, right? From,
Right.
wrecking your car, from, I don't know, like having to go, being sober, from whatever, right? Like there's
Yeah.
grief all throughout life. But I think for a lot of men, it's like we feel like we failed. We did not protect that person. We did not protect that part of our life. We did not protect our job, our identity, whatever it is, you know? And that oftentimes with grief, there's nothing you can do. It's completely outside of your control. And it makes us feel very weak and emasculated, because
Mm-hmm.
the hard truth about grief most of the time is there's nothing you could have done to prevent that. And it just
Mhm.
sucks, right? There's like
Yeah.
nothing you can do to bring that person back. There's nothing that you could do to prevent that person from dying, right? It just sucks. And men really struggle being in like the just sucks place because we
Mhm.
feel powerless, right? We
Yeah.
feel like we're drowning and we don't know how to swim. So it's not just grief, which is big on its own. It's also fear and shame for a lot of guys because we want to
Mm-hmm.
do stuff. So nature, I mean, to your example, it's like if you can even just do one thing for the sister, or a lot of guys
Right.
really do well with like writing a eulogy, like I said, or lighting a candle for that person, or going and doing a private funeral where they can talk, in nature, or bury ashes or something, like action. Men are so action oriented. If you can start to get the action moving, one, it'll make
Mm-hmm.
them feel more powerful. It'll bring back some of that sense of power, which is important. But two, it creates an opportunity for them to be more emotion and to process those emotions, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to
Being
like have something
useful.
to do about it.
So are you telling me I just effed up because actually he went to go sing at the funeral,
He did what,
but
sir?
I didn't. He his action was singing at
Oh,
the funeral,
nice, nice.
but
Yeah,
I didn't go because I don't do funerals.
yeah.
I
Well,
just don't do funerals.
yeah. Well, I mean,
So,
I mean,
but I was
that's
there. I was there when he got home. Like, yay! Did they cry when you sang?
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the thing is like
yeah, they
figuring out
did.
like
They don't always cry when he sings, but
yeah,
yeah,
like what's supportive for him, right? Does he want you in the audience? Does he want you to help him
right,
rehearse? Does he want you to,
right.
pick up an outfit for the day? Is it helpful,
Mhm,
to your point when he comes home that he has a meal, right? Like for each guys, like we're very simple creatures,
Mhm.
so it's often
mhm,
it's like attention, like physical affection and food is mainly what we need, or like,
right.
time to sleep,
Mhm.
so it's like
Mhm,
asking him what he needs. But I think
yeah,
like
yeah.
witnessing is a big deal, right? So like watching him sing might have been very meaningful to him. Being involved, even if you were just silent there, could have been meaningful. But I don't know your
I
husband,
didn't
So,
so
go.
you have to ask him. You have
so
to ask
in
him
that
what he
same
wants.
lane,
Right.
talking about needing to, to have some feeling of action because you don't feel like you're in control and you feel like, there's a certain level of shame that comes along with that. What happens when the anger steps in to that lane?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So
in my
well,
own
It's
grief, I
over.
know when the anger stepped in, I was not prepared for that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think when a lot of people feel powerless, right, when their backs are against the wall, they lash out, right?
Mhm.
You back a tiger in the wall, it's gonna freaking tear your face off. So none of that is bad, and that's the kind of the mesh I'll keep saying. It's more about how do you express it? How do you find a healthy expression for it? And of
Right.
course, therapy is always a great way, but talking to your friends, right? Finding a way to scream in the woods, in this for anger, I mean, a hard workout is helpful, or hitting a punching bag, like moving it in some way, but with my guys, kind of what I said earlier, is like I'm always a fan of like creative arts. If there's anything that they can do just to like start moving that thing out of them and express it without judgment, so something I'll do with some of my guys in grief, right? Sometimes they'll be, because it's complicated, sometimes they'll be mad at the person that died. I mean, a really common example, which is shitty, but a common example is like a suicide, or someone that yeah, right, that like drank themselves to death, or something where it's like that person killed themselves in one way, shape, or form. And like I would encourage you, like, get mad at that person, right? Like write out all the nasty thoughts that you have, and then light that on fire and let it go. I'm a big fan. I help my clients do what I call private funerals, because at a funeral, it is performative. I think we were talking about that earlier. Like you can't just like get up and say whatever you want, but like nothing's
Well,
stopping you going into the woods and like burying like a little stick figure and like giving a real eulogy about how you feel about that person, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like as honest as
right.
possible. And like, our society doesn't really make room for that, but humans have been doing that for, again, eons. Like it
Millennia, yeah.
millennia, right? It's all about like moving it through and being as honest as possible. And if you can actually connect with that anger, you know, it will transmute, it will change into something else.
Yeah.
But right
Right.
now, like that is what your heart needs. And like if you fully engage with it, then it will pass. Even though it can be scary to like give give into it, because you think you're going to be stuck there forever, but you won't.
Right.
If you actually move through it, you'll move through it, right?
So then my follow-up question to that is, if your dad, husband, brother, whatever he is to you, is going through that and they're lashing out, and even though you know that there's grief underneath that, that's the undercurrent, is that grief and that loss and that fear and all those things, how do you set that boundary, still being supportive and not cruel?
Yeah. So I think this is a really important question, right? And a nuanced question, but there is a line, right? If that person is starting to be harmful towards you, if they're being abusive towards you, if they are, being mean, right? You can say like, look, you cannot talk to me that way. I know you're hurting right now, and I'm 110% okay talking about your hurt, but I will not tolerate being spoken to this way. And if it's someone that's close, you say like, look, I love you and I want to get you support, so like let's talk about therapy or a men's group, or maybe call your buddy up, or your brother up, or whatever, right? Or like let's figure out a way to move this. But it still doesn't excuse like violent or abusive action. Like
Because
there's
I'll be
there's
real
absolutely
honest,
no.
I'm that bitch that'll tell you real quick, like, you're just not going to talk to me any old way, and you can fuck all the way off with that.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Not
exactly,
really
exactly.
helpful, but it's the boundary.
Exactly, exactly. It's holding that, again, so it's like kind of like the closed fist in one hand and the open palm in the other. So like you have the closed fist, and then you say, I know you're hurting, and like let's make a plan to get you some support and work you through this. Like I'm not abandoning you in this,
Right,
but there's still a line, right? Like I'm not
right.
going to be victim to some assholery, constantly, but we can come with a creative solution. Again, it's that teamwork. If us together can figure out a way for you to like get this out, we'll do it together, but
Yeah,
this is
because
not the
I'll hold
way.
an umbrella in the rain with you all day long, but I'm not going to drown in it just because you are.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
It is kind of my thought process in
Yeah,
that.
I mean that's why my job exists, right? That's why there are mental health
Facts.
professionals, because we're the person that we're trained to be able to go into that, and we don't have a personal relationship with that person, so it doesn't hurt as much, right? Like we're
Right.
kind of a neutral third party, so we're able to be more objective and more
Objective.
resourced
Yeah.
and more grounded, right? Like we don't have to go home to
Well,
that person, we don't have to live with them, right? We can support them.
exactly. It's I
All
don't
good.
have to see all your shadows. I can just listen.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
Thank you for what you do for men. That's awesome. It's
facts.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have a follow-up question to that. How do men's grief change when that relationship, if they lost a person, let's say a father, that maybe they didn't have a good relationship
Mhm.
with, or that there was resentments, therefore it was complicated, whatever the case may be, and they're trying to reconcile not only that loss, but that lack of prior to that loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still having the anger towards
Back into
the
the anger
dad or
aspect.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah. Yep. So this is, one of those moments that I help my dudes in therapy, which is basically moving from a victim to a hero is the way that I talk about it. So for
Okay.
instance, in your example, right? Like that person who lost their father who they had a bad relationship with, like they said, not only are they grieving that loss, because there's a biological thing. You're gonna feel sad, even if that person was a dick to you, there's still like a biological connection to your parent, whether you
Right.
want it to be there or not, right?
Right.
But really, what they're also grieving is the potential that they could have had a better father, right? Like they're
Yes.
grieving the fact that the relationship never worked out and they never had the dad that they deserved or that they wanted, right? They had like a shitty experience. And now, because that person is dead, it's never going to change, right? It's kind of like set in stone. So that is grief. But where it becomes a victim mentality, which I think a lot of people, men, women, everyone in between, falls into, is where it's like, oh, because I've lost that person, now I'm fucked for life, right? Now I'm just like ruined as a
Mhm.
person. And that is not true. That is frankly not true, right? So the kind of the nuanced point here is like, just because you've lost that person, like that's not your fault, but you are responsible for filling that hole in your heart. And there
Mhm.
are tons of men, older, younger, whatever, that like want to be mentors, whether that's in a spiritual community or in a teaching community or a hobby or, business, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of good guys out there that they'll never be your dad, but they can actually give you quite a bit of what you're looking for if you are humble enough to engage them in that way.
They can
So
Mhm.
feel the
like
connection.
yes. So
Yeah.
it's like, and it might take, 3 different mentors to fill the hole in your heart that your dad left you. But like, I think as a man or as a person, really, like you're responsible for finding those people and healing yourself,
Yeah.
when you're ready. But you are responsible for that because no one's going to do that for you. And I think when people get stuck in that pain, that's when it gets really dark and they can't move out of it. Right. And again, uh,
Mhm.
professional can help you do that, but I think like at some point you got to put on your big boy pants and like take inventory of what you're missing and then go out in the world and try and find it because it is out there for you.
Because even if you're not, in my own experiences, even if I wasn't searching for that, if I left the door open to it,
Mhm.
inevitably, just by sheer cosmic force, it will find you.
Yes. Yes.
But
It
your
will find you.
question,
You just have to be
Stephanie,
open to it.
your
Hmm.
question, Stephanie, about the, if they did not, if a guy did not have a good relationship with somebody that, or the dad that, okay. So Mark said something earlier, and he said it twice, which I think would help in that situation is a
Hmm.
private funeral. Because at the funeral, the son can't say,
Right.
"You an asshole
Yeah.
to me
Yep.
the whole time, and I don't like it." And so the private funeral where they can express how they really feel, and still they might just say, "I wish we had a second chance
Yeah.
just in case you did change the relationship with me. But now that we don't, I can change it within." Okay,
Right.
I can change how I see and perceive you. I will look back into your future, into your past, to see how you had your relationship with your dad, which would explain to me, since you're not here to say it, why you might have had that with me. Okay, so that private funeral, that private service, have that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Mark. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because,
That would
like,
start the ball rolling.
right. Because for me personally, I mean, we did the whole funeral. Okay. I walk around my house fussing and cussing at him like he's still standing right here all the time.
Yeah.
Because I get mad at him. I get frustrated with him. He's not here in the way that I need him or want him to be here anymore. And I have no problem telling him so. Even if I'm just talking to the ether, I still have no problem telling him so. Because that's just how I process and work through it.
Yeah.
This is what's inside. Again, I'm not going to drown because I'm standing in your rain. So here you go. You finna get it, my man. I don't care if you can hear me or not. You finna get it because I got to get it out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, that's right. You got to work through it. And then I think there is, there's a faith component. I know that word can be loaded for some people, but there is like a faith component that like it will pass. and no one
Yep.
knows what your particular grief process is going to look like, what your storm is going to look like, but like it will pass, you know? And like you'll find other people in your life that are starting to fill some of that role. It'll never be the exact same, right? But
Right.
like you can find people that love you, that care about you, that support you, that lift you up, and like we all need each other. I think grief, and I mean any emotion really, but I think grief especially becomes really dangerous in isolation. That's where it really gets scary, and that's where people get really self-destructive.
Mhm.
Yeah, because for me personally, I can tell you the women in this room right here, had it not been for these women standing in the gap in the last 9 months, I would not be sitting here today. I promise you.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
promise
Well, I also wanted to comment on what you had said, Mark, about just kind of not so much the faith part, but just like things will pass, things will move on, things will get better eventually. That's kind of hard to say when, sometimes these people that they're grieving are still alive. Like
Mhm.
let's say you've lost a friend or even a family member that
Mhm.
you've gone completely no contact with, and it's hard because these guys, you've already, kind of explained that why they don't, process their emotions as well as they do. But, it's even harder when these people are just a phone call away and they can't make that call because they don't want to lose masculinity, don't want to lose, control, all of these things. They want to hold on to all of that, because feeling helpless is one of the hardest things for a man, and that's a huge emotion you feel when you're losing somebody. You have to go no contact. You have no control over them changing or not. You can only control and set your boundaries for you. So that's kind of my thought on that is just like, gosh, like how hard it is for them to process, even though, these people can be still alive. Their grief can come in different ways, for
Oh,
sure.
for sure, for sure. And I'm saying it's like the potential relationship that didn't work out.
Right,
And I
right.
think what you're talking about, I mean, everything you just named, right? Of like, they don't want to lose their masculinity, they don't want to look like a fool, they don't want to be weak. Like in our industry,
Mhm.
we call that like the man box, because all those things that you mentioned, like those are within that guy's control. That's all mindset, right? That's like a
Mhm.
prison that a lot of men, right, me included, until I did this work, like we made for ourselves. But like you can work at those things. It's not going to be easy, right? It's going to be a lot of therapy
Mhm.
work, a lot of self-improvement work, reading a lot of books, taking a lot of emotional risks. Like it's years of work. It's not, you can't just
Finding
like
new
fix
friends.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
find new friends, find healthy habits. It's fucking forever. But like that work frees you from a mental prison of your own creation. So like, yes, you're not in control what that other person on the other end of the line is going to say when you call them, or even if they're going to pick up the phone, right? But you are in control of all of those barriers that are holding you back. And the way you said it is perfect, because all of those are like fear, you know
Right.
so that person's living in fear, and it's like everywhere they turn there's another wall of that man box, and it's so narrow. We have such a narrow ability to express ourselves, but like we built those walls so we can
Mhm.
tear them down, you know?
Yeah, true that.
It's crazy because this comes full circle as well. Like I said, we understand why they've kind of held back these emotions. We understand what they need to do to kind of like better themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind
Work
of
through.
really just come full
Mhm.
circle, all like just like that. It's kind of crazy. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, we had to talk about the emotions to understand grief a little
Right.
bit and the anger and how they're going to process it and what to do to get better at processing it.
For
Mhm.
So
sure,
it's
for
really
sure.
cool.
And some of the best, I mean, if you're supporting a man that's going through that, right? Like one of the best things you can do, if as sneakily as possible, frankly, is like bring healthy male role models into their life. And maybe that's a podcast episode, maybe that's a movie, maybe that's a community leader or an elder in your circles, right? Maybe that's somebody, one of your family members, right? But like the
Or
more
send them to
men,
Mark.
yeah, listen to me. Sure, yeah, check out my podcast. But like, but true, the more men see other guys, especially if they're older and they respect them, talking about their feelings, right?
Mhm.
And be like, oh, this person is like still cool. Like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Actually, if you look at his Instagram, he's super emotional. He talks about being a dad all the time. He talks about like, his family drama. He talks about how touching it is to meet fans. And that dude is a man. He's as jacked as you could
Mhm.
possibly be,
Yeah.
you know? Or like Jim Carrey, who like most men are like, yeah, Jim Carrey's fucking funny. I love that guy, right? He talks about his depression openly, talks about
Mhm.
suicidality. He's like a big advocate for mental health. You know, there's a ton of celebrities, there's a ton of athletes. Like guys are talking about it a lot more. And you need
So
to get men to engage with that and be like, okay, you know, if freaking The Rock can talk about his feelings, like I can probably do it too, right? It doesn't make him
I
less
think I
of a
got
man
that.
to be more open.
I love
So,
that.
what do you wish every woman who loves a man that's grieving can understand? What do they need to know?
That you can't force it, you know, you can't force it. And that, I mean, I think we've kind of been saying it in 100 different ways. Is like, I think because men are so new to this and we don't have a lot of training, it goes a lot slower than women can process, you know. And I think a lot of men feel pressured, or they feel judged, or they feel stupid, or they feel like you know, being interrogated, I think, to use your words, like they feel rushed in their grief, you know. So I think it's like the hard truth for women is that like you can't force it, and there might be aspects that you can't understand or that your man might never tell you. But again, the best thing that you can do is to bring another man into his life that he can be open with,
Yeah.
you know, because there
Or
will
to
be
be a
that.
teammate, like you had said.
Yeah, to be a teammate, yeah, right, to like help
Mhm.
him in that. Because you know, and I think that it's tough in couples because, you know, as a woman too, I've heard from many of my female clients, it's like y'all don't want to feel like your man is your kid too, right? You
Yeah.
don't want
Right.
you don't want to take care of him or have to cook him breakfast or, you know, dress him up or whatever, buy all of his clothes, right? Like you want him to be a man on some level. So like there's always going to be a little bit of that gap between the two of you. But again, but that creates like, you know, intimacy and sexuality and passion and love. Like that gap is important, but you can
Hmm.
help him find other resources and find places where he can be more honest, you know. And just don't take it personally when it's not exactly you, right? Like you don't have to be everything for him, just like he doesn't have to be everything for you. But he does have to find something that works, you
Yeah.
know.
Put on
And
your
oftentimes
best
he'll do that processing work away from their relationship and then report back to you,
hmm.
right? So you'll get it all. You'll just get it, you know, one step removed.
Yeah.
Right.
Sweet.
You're kind of like the middleman, but on the outside.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, Mark.
Awesome.
Any closing thoughts? Anything you don't feel like we've covered that you want to share?
I mean, I keep talking, but the only thing I want to say, I kind of say this on every show that I'm on, is like if you're a guy and you're listening, right? Or again, if you're a woman and you know a man, you can say this to him, is like seek support early, because the number one thing I see with most of my guys is they don't call me until their life is a fucking disaster, right? Until they've like gotten the divorce, they've been drinking for 5 years, their health has gone to shit, they've lost a couple jobs. Like talking to a therapist is like the beyond last
Hmm.
resort, you
Right.
know. And like look, we can help you, we can help you there. I mean, we're trained, like we'll dig you out of that hole, but it'd be a hell of a lot easier if you called us 2 years ago. You
Yeah.
know. So like if you're a dude and you're feeling any of this grief, or you think that something is up, like give us a call early, because it's actually a lot easier to change course before it gets too bad. And I think
Hmm.
again, I think it's something that women do a lot better, is because you all are more intuitive, you seek help earlier because you sense that something's off and you want to get ahead of it. Whereas
Well,
men,
and we're
it's like
connected.
we always say, sorry.
I said we're connected.
Yeah.
Like what you had said, we're just emotionally connected, you know.
Hmm.
Right, right. Exactly. You know, I have a female client that'll be like, oh, you know, something feels off in my friendship. I just want to explore what that's about. Whereas like a guy is like, you need to get divorced 3 times, getting a restraining order, you know, like, you know, lose your job. And you're like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with my relationships, you know? So it's like, as guys, it's like, if something feels off, or you see the disaster coming, like intervene early before you hit the wall is kind of the last message I would say, you know?
Okay, yeah, because I've always equated that to my husband was prior military, and so I always kind of equated that to like falling on a grenade, thinking you're going to get up and walk it off,
Yeah,
and you're not.
you're not. You're not. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
So, yeah. All right, ladies, any last thoughts?
Nope. I loved it. This is best episode so far. Good.
Momo,
Very, very good.
I think we did good.
Yeah.
Nature, thumbs up.
Oh, I
Chris,
don't know. I mean, if we want to put on like the, that if you can't reach out to a therapist and you feel crazy or weird, I know that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, they have it to where you can text them if you don't want to talk to someone personally. You know
And
what I
there will
mean?
be a
Like,
graphic at the end of the video that'll have all those numbers listed and who you can
yes.
contact and how to get a hold of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like,
great.
please contact somebody. If it's a friend,
please.
even if you have to text
Yeah.
somebody, please.
Yeah, there's a ton of free resources and like super cheap resources. Like, just share them out because it's not a resource issue. Like, there's tons of places for guys to plug in. They just have to
Facts.
do it. They just have to
And
do
this
it.
is not a replacement for therapy or crisis support or anything of that nature. This is a discussion around it. If that is your need, please, by all means, seek it out. Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
And
Yeah.
can you plug Mark? Like at
Mark
the end
plugged
with the credits or
Mark.
something?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
going
well,
to. I'm going to put
Yeah, I
up his
can.
name
yeah.
and his website. Yeah.
His info too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I got you.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
All right. Thank
You.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Love
much,
Thanks,
y'all.
Mark. I
Mark.
appreciate
Nice
Thank
you
to
you
meet
very
y'all.
deeply.
much.
Nice to meet
Nice to
y'all.
meet
You
you.
too. Thank
Thank you
you.
again so
Right.
much.
Take care. Bye.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.